Okay, I'm going to kick this off with a couple of questions just to kind of set the tone here. So one of those questions would be like, is it possible to be too strong? The next question that maybe comes with that would be, how do I know when I'm strong enough?
You want the strength coach answer?
Yeah, I want the strength coach answer.
It depends.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's the easy cop-out, right? Right. So when we talk about strength training, we know predominantly that in the law enforcement world, and I think, anybody that spends a lot of time in the gym period, most of the effort or emphasis, time, energy gets put into the strength training side of things. Is there anything wrong with that? No. That's not why I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question is like, when are you strong enough? And when does it shift from, look, I've got a good handle on the strength side of things. There's always room for improvement.
Yep.
Right. But at what point does the time that I spend here start to shift over to some other things that may be important? I think maybe one of the other questions is like, how do I know when it is the right time? So those are questions I think we should answer today. So that was a cop-out answer about how do I know when I'm strong enough, or can I be too strong? But what do you want to say about this?
It's very subjective based off the individual. If they're spending more time building the strength and not enough time building the movement that they need, the athletic movement that they need on the job, then that becomes a problem. But yes, you do need a lot of strength, and it is only going to accentuate your ability to move, but it's not the main thing for what's going to help you perform in competition and job.
Disagree.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of debate here. So
so I think great. It's a great point. I love it, except I disagree with it. So I think you need to know the person, because we do the survey. How much time do they have a day? Law enforcement is an example.
About an hour.
About an hour. Say an hour 15. I think is the normal
on the
thing.
high. That's on like the
high end. Hour 15. I need to know each person. Right now, there are 3 people on this podcast. We could not be the most different 3 people to be on this podcast right now. So my next question before I go into my reasoning, where I disagree with you, is if we have a pie chart and we have strength, we have speed and power, and we have capacity, what do we think is like, if I have a pie chart, what's the percentages of the importance in that pie chart? So we just have something to go off of.
I would say 50% skill or speed and power.
Okay.
Let's go 30% strength, and then 20% capacity.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Okay, so I got Scott. Scott shows up to me and we test Scott out, and Scott predominantly, more than likely, is probably like 50% strength, let's say 30% speed, power, 20% capacity. Okay, and then you're going to be different than that, and I'm going to probably have more capacity, less strength, and speed and power is going to be low, right? So then I need to say, how do I get all 3 of these individuals? You actually might be the closest to that pie chart, if I'm being honest. In terms of the breakdown you already said. Yes, correct. We're going to be different. So then I would be okay being like, okay, well, whatever Aaron's doing, spot on. So he should just keep doing what he's doing. Maybe I need to adjust a couple pieces, but like he should be doing the programming that he's doing that matches that pie chart. But Scott needs to change. So I need to give him something different to make sure that I can get maybe strength that he's putting too much value on strength. Maybe I'm putting too much value on capacity. Guarantee you I am. So then how do I get me to be my programming to match that pie chart, get me to that pie chart, and then get me going on a program that keeps me steady pace on that route.
I like that.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I like
that.
I
100% agree with that. Yeah.
Gosh, I finally won an argument today.
Sorry, no, you're just...
the debates always turn into agreement.
We always end up agreeing with each other.
That's what I love about this crew.
But I think it's just important to know who they are. But I think what you said was absolutely correct, though.
I think I'm looking more of like, what's the standard that we should hold? Definitely going into individual. We need to eventually form them into that pie chart, but it's going to take a little bit more. Maybe they need more of a strength piece to get them up to 30% strength.
And the funny thing is, we have an assessment and then a program that does that gets you there.
You said that about the pie chart. You said, first off, you got to get them to the pie chart. Then they have to have a strong level or high level of awareness of where they may fall into that pie chart. So going back to like asking the question, I think inherently people know where they're spending their time. Right?
Sure.
And they tell us when we ask them that, like, this is what it looks like. And they're trying to balance that against other things. Like, I also go to BJJ, 1 or 2 times a week. And I also like to get out and run because I like the way it makes me feel. Like, I do that 5K once a week or whatever the case is.
Is you or is just that person? No. Oh, yeah, I was so confused.
This is when I have these conversations with people, this is what they tell me. And so they're trying to balance a lot of things. But when they go to the gym, right? Where they've now carved out that time to get there. When I say the gym, I mean like the weight room, the strength and conditioning room. They tend to gravitate more towards the strength. And I think there's some reasons for that. One, because it makes sense. Right? It makes good logical sense.
Well, because most gyms that they might go to are not built like gyms that are built for speed and power.
Correct.
They don't have a turf. They don't have an open space. Like they're very machine oriented with barbells.
So if you walked into like the barn here, like you look around and it's very much set up to build all of the things, right?
Yeah, it's built to be like, if you need to do it, we can get it done.
Correct. Like if you walk into Red Dot, it's the same. It looks like a strength and conditioning room. It doesn't look like your traditional gym. Again, like a 24-hour fitness, a Lifetime, or something like that. And so the place is stacked with strength building equipment, right? Yeah. And sometimes... And
there's a turf field.
There's a little bit of a turf.
10 by 20 in the back corner that has a Bosu ball. That's it.
Might be a sled there. There might be a couple medicine balls. There's various kettlebells.
And that's where I end up spending my time at when I go into that gym.
Right. Same. Yeah. Like, I don't care. It's funny. We were just out in, Cece and I were just traveling. We got stuck in a town kind of overnight. We're like, let's make the most of this. We went and got into one of the local gyms there. I can't remember what it is, but it's a big chain out there. I hadn't been in one of those in a while. Usually I try to pick more of the gyms that look like yours. Yeah, correct. Right? Like, CrossFit gyms.
A small gym owner that's running a franchise.
A CrossFit type place where people would refer to that. I hear it referred to and I can't stand it, but they say like a more functional training type place, whatever the hell that means. But the point of that being is that's where like the first place I go is like over to the turf.
This had to be Crunch Fitness.
God, what was it called?
Because they do have a functional fitness section.
Not making a joke.
No. They have a section like that.
I forget what it's called. Vasa Fitness is what it was called.
Oh yeah, I never heard of that.
And there are a lot of them. There's a bunch of them all over the place there. So anyway, walked into this place, but that's where I went first. I go first to the turf, right? To go through my warm up, right? To go through my prep. And then there are only probably 5 pieces of like fixed equipment that I might have used in it. And I went to those because I don't have access to those otherwise. I'm like, I'm going to go get on the plate loaded chest press machine today because I really like that. My favorite in any gym is when they have the plate loaded row.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
with the hammer row.
Like the good old fact. I love that machine because it's isolated. I can really load it up. It's easy on my dumpster fire of a back. Like I can really load it up, and I feel like I get a lot out of that. Like I just really love that machine. My point of that is like I've used very little of what's available to me, but when you're walking into your gym and you have all this stuff and you're paying the monthly membership, and it just makes sense. Everybody in there is strength training. You have a lot of places have this massive cardio section. You know, they got 100 pieces of cardio over there and 5 pieces are being used. Some cases, all of them are being used and nobody's on the strength floor. The point of that is it makes sense. Like I go in and so when I go to the gym, I'm spending my time on the strength training stuff. The other thing about that is strength training in general, principles, programming, it's very well known. Like we know how to apply it.
So studied.
Yeah, it's
deeply studied.
It's very easy to get information on it. It makes sense. And you can generally get a pretty good sense of like, I'm doing this right, in a sense. So there's some knowledge base around it. So it makes sense to go there and do that. I do my program and workout this way. And then I see a result that it's measurable, either in how many plates I can put on the bar or, in the mirror and what I'm seeing, and those kind of things. The shirt that I'm wearing is fitting a little tighter, like that kind of stuff. Like that makes sense. There's a lot of good value to that. But when you start looking at like the speed and power and the capacity pieces, those are a little bit more or less understood, a little bit more, I would say, misapplied a lot of times. And people just don't know how. And they're not around anybody. The gym's not full of people doing that for them to watch and take things in. And when you go out to look for information on that stuff, man, like there's a lot of it and it seems like it's coming from all different directions. So again, I think, gravitating towards it, it's like, how much time am I spending strength training versus these other things? And is there a point where I could be too strong, or how much value am I putting in this strength? Right?
I think he said, I don't know how to answer the strength training, whatever you said, the joke you made about like it's important or how much. What was it?
I can't remember.
Anyway, like it's hard because there's not one, but it'd be really cool if there was of a measurable point.
That is the other part of this.
Yeah.
So what point do I know I'm strong enough?
Yeah.
Right. So unless I'm competing in something that very specifically measures a very specific
and I know I'm going to hit this.
Metric, yes, like powerlifting,
Olympic
or
lifting.
weightlifting.
Yep, correct.
Right? Those two sports are very specific about I know I am or I know I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? It's very easy to measure that you either did it or you didn't do it. Right?
So I would make the argument those are probably not great examples because you want to lift more. So I'd make the example, and there's nothing else you're measuring. I'm not like, so if I was an Olympic lifter and I was also swimming, I would be like, okay, well, I don't want to sacrifice swimming in case of snatching more. I need to be able to be good at both. So I would say, like, in terms of like a sport that has multiple domains that you're measuring, then I'd be like, I need to be able to hit an average or above average, like a percentile, and then focus on other things.
Yeah, but what I would say is, like, at least I have something to chase because I know the guy that's better than me.
Oh, sure. Okay.
The competitor that's better than me. I lifted 150 kilos in that snatch. That guy did 151. Now I know I'm not strong enough.
Yeah.
Right? In order for me to win or podium or be placed on that leaderboard or whatever else, I have to hit that certain metric. And I think those are the things that are missing. And that's the hard part, is how do I know? Right? But at the same time, what we also know doesn't exist is that your 600-pound deadlift, right, doesn't equate to another metric in another thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how fast do you sprint? Like, I've met some 600-pound deadlifters that can sprint very fast, right? But they didn't just do that by deadlifting, right, or lifting weights. They were actually out there performing the skills, right, and the movement in order to be better at that. Yep. So at what point does that switch over? And at what point does being a 650-pound deadlifter make you a faster sprinter, right? Like, at some point, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns there. By, additional weight, muscle mass, power to weight ratios are a thing. Like, what's inhibiting me? And then again, like, where is my fitness to actually do this if I'm putting all this time onto the platform to do the deadlift? And I think, like, again, because there are no hard and fast metrics and there is no standard across the board, particularly like in law enforcement training or whatever else, as we look at it as a whole, I think that's the tough part. If you could give person like a target to go after, they might have an easier time, obviously, trying to get there because they would know what they were shooting for. I want to be clear about this, that we're not bringing this topic up to say that strength isn't important by any sense of the term, right? There's a ton of value in it. We talk about it ad nauseum, right? How important that strength is a base foundation for the things that you're going to be doing with the movement, right? That you have to also be good at. But again, like, values, right? Or the value that you place in it, and like thinking about, like, do I need to be stronger and what for is a question you got to ask.
Yeah. I mean, we value strength. And I'll give you an example of why, is because when you do the assessment, we don't have a definition for, like we talked about, there's not a definitional concept of how strong is too strong. Like, it's usually probably should be based upon body weight to some nature. But how we do our assessment is we based, hey, I'm going to recommend a strength program for you if you can't do certain minimum requirements.
Correct. Yep.
I believe pulling for pull-ups, I believe back squat and deadlift are the three lifts we test.
Not back squat. It's bench press. It's a
bench press and deadlift. Yeah.
Sorry.
And by the way, it's not a 1 rep max, it's 3 reps.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, which I'm cool with. And so we have a minimum to say, hey, we need you to get stronger, but then we place you in a program after you can do those things to go through strength PDF. We place you in a program to essentially still work on that, but it's still, again, going back to that pie chart of, hey, it's not going to be more important than speed and power, but it's still important. Correct. It's just we're not going to be placing all of our time on it, but we're still putting time in it.
Yeah, and it gives us a baseline to build from. Yeah. Right? Because if you can't do what we've determined is a good, fair, or a poor, fair, or good requirement, or if you kind of fall into that continuum of things, how do we get better at this stuff, and what should the emphasis be for a period of time to kind of get you up to speed? And, the only way to know that is to get to the assessment and do it and kind of understand it. And we've made, adjustments male to female on things. So like that's the other hard part. Again, like, how do I know I'm strong enough, or what's too strong, or whatever? We're not saying that. Well, the standards or the metric that we came up with is what we feel very comfortable with based on, again, collecting metrics, studying the people, studying the job, right? And studying what actually translates over time, again, through development programs, through the development of our own program, our development team that goes out and actually tests this stuff. Yep. And so, like, again, like, you don't have to be a 600-pound deadlifter. We keep using that term and that number,
so
right?
much.
Or that exercise, I don't know. Like, that's a lot of weight. It's a tremendous amount of weight. Like, you don't have to be able to do that much. The point of that is like, people would ask, like, what are they? Go to the assessment. You can figure that out. Like, we're not going to go through all the numbers on the thing today.
It'd take a long time.
It would take a long time to go through that, but you can go. It's there. It's free. Go check it out. You go to IEP-assessment.com. It's right there in front of you. It'll show you how to perform it. Like, we have demo videos on what counts and what doesn't count or whatever. And people, I think, would be surprised to know what those numbers are if they go and look at it. And that it isn't, again, these are not astronomical numbers from the strength perspective. But when you look, then you also take the capacity numbers, or the capacity is part of that assessment, and speed and power part of that assessment, you will see where your deficiencies are.
100%. You'll definitely see where you've spent your most time.
Yeah. That's it. It'll identify for you, probably confirm for you, yeah, I already knew I was valuing the strength, maybe not too much. I was just putting all my value there. What is too much? We'll go back to your pie chart. Like, okay, so maybe I take a little less, but if I'm putting 75% of my pie chart into strength, maybe we take 15% off of that or 20% off of that and put that into capacity or speed and power, depending on how you fall into that game. So again, in terms of the programming and like the strength piece in particular, who doesn't want to look good naked, right? And strength training can help you look good naked. But also there's a lot of other components that go into that, right? You're going to look at in your being able to look in, from my personal experience, being able to dominate another human being with strength is a thing. If you've ever been dominated by another human being because that person was way stronger, as soon as they got their hands on you, you knew, oh God, like I am in for, this is going to be a long day, or this could be very, very bad. That is a huge wake-up call. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you're that big, strong person, the reaction, and you've been in like an environment like that, whether it's in training, it's like consensual, combat or something like that, or non-consensual combat, people's reactions when you get your hand, and that feels pretty good. Like when you're that guy that or that person can dominate this situation. You bring a certain level of presence, confidence to that. You know it in your mind. Like if I get my hands on this person, they're in big trouble. Look, I'm not going to take anything away from that. But at the same time, like how long can you go? Right. And I've seen some really wiry, really mobile, really skilled people handle some really big people before. I mean, all you got to do is turn on the TV and watch some of the MMA stuff that's out there. You look at it, you're just going, oh, I didn't see that coming. Go back to the original fights, like a UFC stuff which is a really good way to look. Go to the jiu-jitsu school and see that bodybuilder get on the mat as a white belt or a blue belt and face the wiry brown belt that just has the Shrek ears and the nose that sits sideways over, and show me what happens. I think so in the end, like so we talked about pie chart, evaluating value, where you're placing it. I think the next place here is like, how do you find out? You test it. Like, what are you doing outside of the gym to express and evaluate your level of fitness across all these domains that are specific for you? And sometimes that could be the BJJ mat. Like, you're big and strong, but you're completely out of shape from a capacity perspective, and you can't go very long. That's a clue, man. Mm-hmm. Like, put some more time into look, you're practicing the skill of jiu-jitsu there. You're going to get some level of conditioning there from the capacity side, but you need to incorporate some capacity training into the thing, right? The other way to know would be to take an assessment, right? And we feel very confident about the assessment we put together. It's a really great place to start with that. Or maybe it's, again, compete in something like Jacob competes in the tactical games. Yeah. You're going to know real fast what your deficiencies are if you're competing. Go out onto the USPSA match. Figure that out. Go through a whole day on the match. Like, what is holding you back? Okay, there's shooting skill that's going on there. But about, like, how are you feeling? Like, how are you doing from one stage to the next? Are you exhausted at the end of the day? What is that telling you from a capacity perspective? There's ways to test this outside of the gym. Get out of the gym.
That's the biggest thing. If you've ever heard me on podcast, not even yours, preach, is from the CrossFit perspective, right? You look at the CrossFit pyramid, the top of it is sport. If you ever look at the hierarchy of CrossFit pyramid, right? It goes nutrition, I'm going to murder this, nutrition, blah, 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 something. And then it goes sport at the top. And sport isn't go compete in CrossFit. That's dumb. The concept is take your fitness out of the gym, out of the whatever, and go apply it to something, whether that be your job, if that's how you find you define yourself, that's okay. If that's USPSA, if that's a Spartan race, if that's a bodybuilding comp, I don't give a crap.
Right.
Just take it outside and use it someplace.
Go test it somewhere, yeah.
Test it someplace. And for us, we're obviously, our test is specific to law enforcement. Doesn't apply to a Spartan racer, but like go test it someplace else and see how well you do.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at what kind of motivation that can give you, or perspective that can give you on how you might attack or approach your training going forward. Like, there's so many ways to do that. Pick what you like doing or what you think you might like doing, and without expectation, just go do the thing, right? And then sit there with that and think about what you did well, what you didn't do well. Like, why are you hurting so bad after, right? Like, why did you suck so bad on the uphill portion of that, right? When you did so well on the flats? What are the components of your program that might be missing to help you be better at that? You know, those kind of things. Go have some fun with it. And yes, it might be a 5K, right? And like it could be that, like, you know, what's an easy thing for you to do? So let's giving people solutions. Like, you can go to any city, any town in America pretty much most of the year, with the exception as you're starting to get to the East Coast or the upper Midwest. There's going to be like a 5K race or something you could do. Or look, you mentioned CrossFit, like go compete, right? Or do something like that. Or go do a freaking Spartan race. I don't know, whatever it is you're going to do, just get out and test it. And that'll give you a pretty good indication of where you're good and where you're not. And again, like, how much did your strength help you in that thing? It's certainly going to help you to some extent, but there will be limitations on it.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're saying. Like, don't limit yourself in the other things you can do as an athlete because you're putting all your time into the strength training for the good things that it can give you, but also taking away from the things that you could be so much better at if you put in the time and the effort.